Lena's heart raced as she stood in front of the office door, her hand trembling on the handle. She had worked her entire career for this moment. The promotion to manager. It was supposed to be hers. But when the email had arrived this morning, it hit her like a slap in the face. The promotion had been given to Claire. Betrayal. Of all people. Claire, the one who had always been just a bit too friendly with the higher-ups, a little too eager to please. Lena had worked hard, stayed late, done everything by the book, and yet it was Claire who had been chosen. She couldn't understand it. Her entire life had been leading up to this moment. She'd sacrificed time with friends and family, poured every ounce of her energy into this job, all for nothing. And Claire had waltzed in and taken it. The injustice of it all was unbearable. Lena opened the door and walked in. The office was quiet. The hum of the air conditioner the only sound. She took a deep breath, trying to calm the rage bubbling inside her. But it didn't help. She had to do something about this. She had to make Claire understand the consequences of what she had done. Lena wasn't just going to let this slide. She would get her promotion back, no matter what it took. Lena couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. Her mind replayed the events of the morning. The cheerful smile from Claire as she walked past Lena's desk, the knowing glance from their boss, and that email. The promotion, the one that had been promised to Lena, had been snatched away, just like that. As Lena stared at the email again, reading the words over and over, anger bubbled inside her. It's just business, she told herself. But deep down, she knew it wasn't just business. It was personal. Claire had undermined her in front of everyone, and Lena couldn't let it slide. She wouldn't. The walls of the office seemed to close in on her, the buzzing lights above only adding to the pressure. Lena clenched her fists, gritting her teeth. She had to get her promotion back. She couldn't just walk away from this, not after everything she had sacrificed. Lena needed answers. She needed to know how this had happened, how Claire had managed to swoop in and take what was rightfully hers. She wasn't going to let Claire walk away with her hard-earned victory, not without a fight. The next day, Lena found herself standing in front of Claire's desk, her nerves taut like a bowstring. Claire looked up from her computer, flashing that same smile she always wore, the one that made Lena's blood boil. "Hi, Lena. What's up?" Claire's voice was too sweet, too fake. It made Lena want to snap. Lena forced a smile, her anger simmering beneath the surface. "We need to talk," she said, her voice steady but firm. "About the promotion." Claire's eyes flickered for just a moment, but she quickly regained her composure. "What about it?" she asked innocently, though Lena could see the triumph in her eyes. Claire leaned back in her chair, crossing her arms as she looked up at Lena. "I don't know what you're implying, but I earned this promotion," she said, her voice dripping with condescension. "It's not personal, just business." Lena's blood boiled at the words. "Business? You took it from me, Claire. You knew I was the better choice. I worked harder, longer, and I deserved that promotion." Her voice rose with each word, the fury inside her breaking free. Claire's smile never wavered. "Maybe you did, Lena. But I have the connections. I play the game better than you." She paused, her gaze narrowing. "Maybe you should have tried a little harder." The insult hit Lena like a slap in the face. Her hands shook, but she clenched her fists to steady herself. "You're going to regret this," Lena muttered through clenched teeth. "I'll make sure of it." Lena didn't know exactly how she would get her promotion back, but one thing was certain: Claire had underestimated her. Lena wasn't going to let this go. Not this time. She had spent years building her career, and she wasn't about to let a backstabbing colleague destroy it. The thought of revenge lingered in her mind, but Lena wasn't sure if that was the right path. Could she really stoop to Claire's level? Would the satisfaction of seeing Claire fall be worth the cost of her own integrity? Lena stood by the window of her apartment that night, looking out at the city lights. The skyline was beautiful, but all she could think about was the battle ahead. This wasn't just about a promotion anymore. It was about reclaiming her dignity, her self-worth, and showing Claire that she couldn't take what was rightfully hers without consequences. Lena couldn't shake the feeling of injustice that had consumed her ever since the promotion debacle. She had always believed in fairness, in working hard to get what you deserve, but Claire's sudden rise to power shattered that belief. Was it all just a game to Claire? A game Lena had lost without even realizing the rules? Sitting at her desk, Lena stared at her reflection in the computer screen. She had spent hours that morning going over her performance reviews, her accomplishments, the extra hours she'd put in. But none of it mattered. In the end, it was Claire's charm, her connections, that had won her the prize. Lena clenched her fists, the burning desire for revenge rekindled. She had a plan. She would make Claire pay for this betrayal. But she couldn't do it in a reckless way. She had to be smart about it, patient. The truth always came out in the end, and Lena was going to make sure Claire's secrets were exposed. The next day, Lena walked into the office with a newfound sense of purpose. She had a strategy now, a plan to slowly unravel Claire's position and expose her lies. But first, she needed information. She needed someone on her side. That's where Alex came in. Alex had always been a friendly face around the office. They had worked together on several projects, and though they weren't close, Lena knew he had a reputation for being a bit of a gossip. If anyone knew something about Claire's rise to power, it would be him. Lena found Alex in the break room, sipping his coffee as usual. "Hey Alex," she said casually, walking up to him. "Got a minute?" Alex looked up, raising an eyebrow. "For you? Always." He smiled, but Lena could tell he was a little uneasy. It had been a while since they had talked one-on-one, and she knew that the tension in the office had been palpable ever since the promotion news spread. "Alex, you're close with Claire, right?" Lena asked, her voice calm but steady. "I've been hearing some things, and I just need to know if there's any truth to them." Alex stiffened slightly but quickly recovered. "What do you mean?" he asked, his tone betraying his interest. "I mean her promotion," Lena said, watching his reaction closely. "Do you know how she got it? Was it really based on her performance? Or was there something else going on?" Alex hesitated, his eyes flicking around the break room nervously. He lowered his voice, leaning in closer. "Look, Lena. Claire's been playing the game for a while. She's got connections, you know. I heard she made some pretty convincing deals with the higher-ups. That's how she's always done things." Lena's heart sank. "Deals? What kind of deals?" Alex glanced at the door, ensuring no one was listening, before speaking in a near whisper. "I don't know the specifics, but it's pretty clear she's not exactly who she pretends to be. She's got dirt on some of the bigwigs, Lena, and she's using it to climb the ladder." Lena's mind raced. Claire's rise was no accident. She had manipulated her way to the top, using people like pawns in a chess game. And now it was time for Lena to play that game too. The rest of the day passed in a blur. Lena's mind kept returning to Alex's words, "Claire's got dirt on some of the bigwigs." The revelation sent a shiver down her spine. Claire wasn't just a rival. She was a manipulator, playing people like instruments to get what she wanted. And now, Lena had the ammunition she needed to take her down. That evening, Lena began researching Claire's past. She knew that if she wanted to expose her, she had to dig deeper. She spent hours searching through old emails, company records, and gossip threads online, piecing together the jigsaw puzzle of Claire's rise to power. She found her first clue in an old company memo, buried deep within the archive. Claire had been in contact with the CEO's assistant, requesting exclusive projects that no one else was privy to. It was subtle, but it was enough. Lena smiled. This was just the beginning. The next morning, Lena arrived at the office with a renewed sense of purpose. She had a plan now, a way to not only take back what was rightfully hers, but to expose Claire for the fraud she truly was. As she walked into the break room to grab her coffee, she spotted Claire sitting with the CEO's assistant, laughing and chatting as if nothing was wrong. Lena couldn't help but feel a rush of contempt. This was the woman who had stolen her promotion, and now she was basking in the rewards of her deceit. Lena turned away quickly, her fists clenched in frustration. She had everything she needed. Claire's time at the top was coming to an end. It was only a matter of time before Lena struck back. The following days felt like a game of chess. Lena knew Claire's every move, but Lena had to be careful. She couldn't just rush in, she had to play her cards right. The information she had gathered on Claire was valuable, but she needed more. Lena spent her days in meetings and her nights poring over documents, digging deeper into the company's financials and tracking Claire's activities. With every passing hour, she grew more certain that Claire's success wasn't just due to hard work. It was built on lies and manipulation. She found a thread that could unravel everything. A series of emails between Claire and the CEO's assistant discussing project budgets and deadlines, as well as unapproved expenses that had been hidden in the company's books. It was enough to raise some serious questions. The plan was simple: expose Claire's financial misconduct and make it impossible for her to deny. But first, Lena had to find a way to get this information into the right hands. Lena's plan was beginning to take shape, but she wasn't the only one who noticed the shift in the office. Rumors were spreading. Some of the employees were starting to question Claire's sudden rise, and whispers of favoritism reached Lena's ears. One afternoon, while she was in the break room, she overheard a conversation between Sarah, a longtime employee, and Jake, male 40, the head of the accounting department. "I swear something's off about Claire," Sarah said, her voice low. "She's been cutting corners and no one's saying anything." Jake leaned in, lowering his voice even more. "It's all part of the game. But Lena, she's going to figure it out. If she does, we might be in trouble." Lena's pulse quickened. She wasn't the only one who knew. But now, she had to move faster. Claire's reputation was starting to crack, and Lena couldn't afford to let the opportunity slip by. Lena knew that time was running out. The longer Claire stayed in the position of power, the harder it would be to expose her. Lena had to act, and she had to act now. She reached out to Alex, the office insider who had given her the first piece of the puzzle about Claire's manipulations. Lena had learned to trust him, but how much could he really be trusted? "I need your help," Lena said when Alex answered the phone. "I found something on Claire, something big, but I can't do this alone. I need you to help me get this information to the right person." There was a long pause on the line, and then Alex spoke, his voice tinged with hesitation. "Are you sure about this? If you go down this path, there's no turning back. Claire's not someone you want to mess with." Lena clenched her jaw. "I'm already in too deep." Lena and Alex met later that day at a small cafe just outside the office. It was a neutral space, away from prying eyes. "Here," Lena said, sliding a folder across the table to Alex. "This is everything. The emails, the budget discrepancies, the secret project costs. Claire's dirty laundry is all here. I need you to make sure it gets to the right person." Alex glanced at the folder, then back at Lena, his brow furrowed. "You're sure about this? If this gets out, it's not just Claire's career at risk, yours will be too." Lena nodded. "I know, but I can't back down now. I've lost everything to her. She's going down and I'm taking her with me." Alex sighed, looking conflicted. But he took the folder, his eyes lingering on Lena, as if trying to gauge if she was truly ready for what would come next. The next day, Lena received a call from Alex. Her heart raced as she picked up the phone. "I did it," Alex said, his voice shaky. "The information's with the right people. It's going to hit the fan soon. You need to be ready." Lena could feel her pulse quicken. "And Claire? She has no idea. But you should prepare yourself. Once this comes out, nothing will be the same." Lena exhaled slowly. The moment of reckoning was almost here. Claire's empire was about to crumble, and Lena was going to be there to watch it happen. But would it be enough? Could she find peace in exposing Claire, or would revenge only lead her deeper into darkness? The following morning, Lena woke to an email notification on her phone. Her heart skipped a beat as she read the subject line, "Urgent, meeting with HR, promotion concerns." She hadn't expected things to escalate so quickly, but the moment had arrived. The email was short, only stating that the company had noticed discrepancies in project budgets and that both Lena and Claire were being asked to meet with HR. Lena knew this was it. The secrets were about to come out, but she wasn't prepared for what came next. She felt a pang of uncertainty as she got dressed. Was she ready to expose Claire? To bring down her entire career? Would it be worth it? Or had Lena crossed a line she couldn't come back from? She entered the conference room with a steady breath, but nothing could calm the knot of anxiety growing in her stomach. Claire was already there, her usual composed demeanor now replaced with a slight edge of tension. The tables had turned. Lena was no longer the one in the dark. Lena and Claire sat across from each other in the HR meeting, the tension between them palpable. The HR manager, Brian, sat at the head of the table, reviewing papers in front of him. He glanced up and cleared his throat. Lena, Claire, I'm afraid there are some serious concerns about the promotion process. Discrepancies in budgeting have been noticed, and we need to address them. Claire's eyes widened slightly, but her smile remained unwavering. She turned to Lena, a faint trace of smugness behind her expression. What's going on, Lena? She asked, her voice smooth, almost too casual. This isn't like you. Lena's heart raced, but she managed to keep her voice steady. I didn't make the discrepancies, Claire. You did. Brian looked between them, trying to gauge the situation. What exactly do you mean, Lena? Lena took a deep breath, ready to expose Claire's secrets. But just as she was about to speak, Claire's voice interrupted her. That's not what happened. Lena is just upset about the promotion. She's making false accusations. The words hit Lena like a slap. Claire's calm response was almost too rehearsed. Lena's gut twisted. Claire was hiding something, and she was trying to cover her tracks. Brian leaned back in his chair, folding his arms. Lena, if you have proof of these discrepancies, now is the time to show it. Lena could feel the weight of the moment. This was it. Everything was riding on the information she'd gathered. She pulled the folder she had prepared from her bag, sliding it across the table to Brian. I have everything right here, she said, her voice steady but forceful. Emails, budgets, project reports. Claire's been manipulating the numbers to cover up the truth. Claire's eyes flickered with panic for the briefest moment, but she quickly regained her composure. You're going too far, Lena. These are just misunderstandings, nothing more. Brian opened the folder, flipping through the pages with a careful eye. As he scanned the documents, his expression hardened. This is serious, he muttered under his breath. Lena watched as the realization settled over Brian's face. He looked up at Claire, then back at Lena. It seems you were right, Lena. Claire, we need to discuss this further. Claire's face turned pale as Brian continued to look over the evidence. For the first time, the control that Claire had maintained over the situation began to slip. Lena could feel the victory within reach. Claire's reaction was more than Lena had expected. Claire slammed her hand on the table, standing up abruptly. This is ridiculous, she shouted, her voice shaking with fury. You don't know what you're talking about. I didn't do anything wrong. Brian stood up as well, his calm demeanor replaced by a stern authority. Claire, you're not in a position to dictate this situation. We'll be conducting an internal investigation. For now, you're suspended pending the outcome. Lena felt a surge of satisfaction as Claire's mask began to crack. But the victory was bittersweet. Lena had gotten what she wanted. Claire was finally being held accountable. But in the back of her mind, Lena knew that her own actions weren't without consequences. Claire turned to Lena, her face twisted in fury. You think this is over, Lena? You think you've won? This is just the beginning. You don't know what you've done. Lena stood her ground, a faint smile playing on her lips. I've done what was necessary. Lena left the meeting feeling both victorious and unsettled. Claire's downfall had begun, but Lena knew this wasn't the end. The truth had been revealed, but what would be the cost of exposing it? Would the company view her as a hero, or as someone who stirred up unnecessary trouble? Later that day, Lena received a call from her best friend, Sophie Dochbank. I heard what happened, Sophie said, her voice filled with concern. How do you feel about it? Lena paused, thinking for a moment. I'm relieved, but there's still a part of me that feels empty. I thought taking Claire down would make me feel better, but it hasn't. It's like I've won a battle but lost a piece of myself in the process. Sophie's voice softened. Lena, sometimes getting what you want doesn't make the hurt go away. But you've done the right thing. You didn't let her get away with it. Lena smiled faintly. I just hope it was worth it. Lena stood in front of the mirror, staring at her reflection. The weight of everything she'd done pressed heavily on her shoulders. Claire had been exposed, but Lena couldn't shake the feeling that something still wasn't right. The truth had come to light, but the aftermath was messy, and the lines between right and wrong had blurred. The company had gone public with the investigation, and Claire's career had been effectively ruined. Yet, Lena found no joy in watching her downfall. She had achieved her goal, but it didn't feel like a victory. Instead, it felt hollow, like something important had been lost in the pursuit of revenge. Just as Lena was about to turn away from the mirror, her phone buzzed. It was a message from Sophie. You've done it, Lena. But remember, revenge doesn't heal the wounds. You have to find a way to heal yourself. Lena closed her eyes, Sophie's words echoing in her mind. Was this really what she wanted? Or had she become someone she didn't recognize in the process? Later that day, Lena was called into a meeting with the CEO. It was time for the final reckoning. Lena, I've been following the situation closely, the CEO began, his tone neutral. Your actions have shed light on some serious issues within the company. You've done your job, but the way you went about it raises concerns. Lena took a deep breath. I did what I had to do. Claire was using her position to manipulate the system. She needed to be stopped. The CEO nodded, but didn't seem convinced. I understand your anger, but the methods you used, the public exposure, the disruption to the company, those are not the kind of tactics we endorse. We value loyalty and discretion. Lena's heart raced. She had expected praise, even a sense of justice. Instead, she was faced with the reality of the consequences of her actions. Her eyes narrowed as she spoke, her voice steady but tinged with defiance. I exposed the truth. And you're telling me that's not enough? The CEO leaned forward. It's more complicated than that. You've caused a rift within the company, Lena. People are questioning your methods. And while Claire's actions were wrong, the way you went about it has made things harder. Lena felt her heart sink. All of her efforts, all the sacrifices she had made, seemed to be for nothing. Lena left the CEO office feeling defeated. She had expected to walk out with a sense of justice, but instead, she felt like a pawn in a much bigger game. Her pursuit of revenge had come at a cost she hadn't anticipated, the destruction of her own sense of morality. Later that night, she met with Alex at the same cafe where they had first spoken. The air between them was different now, filled with an unspoken understanding. I did what I had to do, Alex, Lena said quietly, her voice filled with frustration. But I'm not sure if it was worth it. Alex sat back, looking at Lena with sympathy. You did what you thought was right. But sometimes, revenge doesn't fix anything. It just leaves a trail of destruction. Lena's gaze dropped to her hands. I thought exposing Claire would bring me closure. But now, I don't know who I am anymore. Alex reached across the table, placing his hand on hers. You'll figure it out, Lena. You always do. Just remember, there's more to life than just getting back at people. The following week, Lena returned to her desk, the office feeling strangely empty. Claire had been removed from her position, but the space Claire once occupied felt oddly vacant. Lena couldn't help but wonder if things would have been different if she had handled things differently. Her phone buzzed. It was a text from Sophie. Don't let the world define you. You define yourself. This is just a chapter, not the end of your story. Lena stared at the message, and for the first time in weeks, she allowed herself to breathe. Sophie was right. Lena had allowed revenge to consume her. But she wasn't just a woman who'd sought vengeance. She was more than that. She had the power to shape her own future. The road ahead wasn't clear, but Lena finally felt the weight of the past beginning to lift. Lena walked out of the office for the last time, the weight of everything that had happened still lingering. But for the first time in a long time, she felt like she was walking towards something better. She had made mistakes, but she had learned from them. Revenge had consumed her, but now she was free of it. As she stepped onto the busy city sidewalk, the hustle and bustle of the world around her seemed less overwhelming. Lena had finally found peace within herself. She wasn't defined by her past mistakes or the actions of others. She was her own person, and she would define her future on her own terms. Lena sat at her desk, reflecting on everything that had happened. Claire was gone, but the company was still reeling from the scandal. Lena had gotten what she wanted, but she couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. The revenge that had consumed her for so long felt hollow. She was no longer the woman seeking vengeance, but one looking for peace. A sense of closure was beginning to settle in as she realized that the fight for justice was over. What mattered now was how she chose to move forward. The phone rang, interrupting Lena's thoughts. It was Sophie. "You okay?" Sophie's voice came through the line, full of concern. "I'm starting to be," Lena replied. "I don't think I could have done anything differently, but I'm done. It's time to let go." Sophie smiled on the other end. "It sounds like you've finally found peace." Lena nodded, though Sophie couldn't see it. "Yeah, I think I have." Lena took a deep breath as she packed up her desk. It was time to move on, to leave behind the toxicity of the past. Claire's shadow no longer loomed over her. Lena had reclaimed her power, not by destroying others, but by taking control of her own narrative. She wasn't the woman who plotted revenge anymore. She was stronger than that. As Lena walked out of the office for the last time, she felt a sense of finality. She wasn't sure what the future held, but she knew she was ready for it. The journey she had been on had shaped her into someone stronger, more self-aware. She took one last look at the office building, then walked into the bustling city, ready to start anew. Lena smiled as she stepped onto the crowded street. The past was behind her, and the future was ahead. She wasn't defined by her actions or by those who tried to break her. She was in control now, ready to write her own story. Lena sat at a cafe, sipping her coffee as the world rushed by around her. It was a peaceful moment, one she hadn't known she'd needed. She had let go of the anger, the obsession with revenge. It no longer defined her. She had found a new purpose, not in punishing those who wronged her, but in embracing the life she had yet to live. Her phone buzzed with a message from Sophie. "Proud of you, Lena. You're stronger than you think." Lena smiled softly. She was finally at peace. As Lena walked home later that evening, the city seemed brighter. The weight that had once burdened her was gone. She wasn't just the woman who had sought revenge. She was someone who had faced her demons and overcome them. The darkness was no longer a part of her. She wasn't sure what the future held, but for the first time in a long time, she was excited to find out. Whatever happened, she knew she would face it on her own terms. Lena paused at the crosswalk, looking up at the sky as the last rays of sunlight dipped below the horizon. She could feel the weight of everything she had gone through, but it no longer felt like a burden. It was a chapter in her life, a chapter that had closed, leaving only the future ahead of her. She took a deep breath and smiled, ready to move forward with a heart full of purpose and a mind clear of revenge. With each step, Lena felt lighter. The chains that had once held her were gone. She wasn't chasing something anymore, she was living, truly living. For the first time in ages, she felt free. She knew she couldn't change the past, but she had the power to shape her future. And that was enough. As the night settled in, Lena stood on the rooftop of her building, looking out over the city. A gentle breeze ruffled her hair as she breathed in the cool night air. She had survived the storm, and now she stood strong in the calm. The journey was over, but her life was just beginning. She didn't need revenge anymore. What mattered now was the peace she had fought for, the peace she had found within herself.